Green Fruit, Chapter 18. He stared, unblinking and even unthinking for a long time. In the periphery of his vision were the spinning explosions of the light outside the crucible. It seemed relatively sane out there compared to the quiet madness in here. He blinked deliberately once more, wondering if this nightmare bullshit would cease to be if he refused to acknowledge it. When has that ever worked, Moya? One more blink. Nope. Still there. His jaw set, shifted as he stared down the nightmare bullshit that was frozen in time, looking like his mother. He'd stared people down before. Here it didn't work. Why the fuck did this thing have to look like his mom? How much he loved her and missed her crept into how he felt about the time-shattered ice ghost like a bloom of blood, freezing into a red-rhymed mosaic. He went over the given options again in his head and didn't see that he could do any of them. Not just difficult, but impossible. He looked at the ghost of his mother and wondered if this thing... If Karin were here, she could help him through this. She's not here. A small, half-hitched smile warmed the ice in his gut. She's here. She's with you. Always has been. Always will be. She's all the things you want. All the things you need. And you know it. Even if she hadn't been born, there would have been a Karin-shaped hole in your life that made it clear to you what and who you were missing. She was there in the form of how much you needed her, even though you didn't know who she was. He looked at the thing that looked like his mother and wondered again. You got bullshit and charm going for you, Moya. And your family, who loves you for no good reason. But they do. He couldn't talk to it like it was his mother because his mother's grip on reality had never been all that steady. But he could talk to it as though it were something he loved. Something he could love. Because right now, that's all he had. Look, I know people are dying and all. Any way you could slow that down so I could concentrate? I'm a little dazed here. Big choice. It shook its head. Fuck. Okay, then I'll do my best. Mind if I ask a few questions? You may ask. Were you ever, a personal question here, part of a family? The galaxy and all the cycles are my family. Moya held up a hand. Wait, no. Hold on here. That's bullshit, I can tell. You're a little confused. Knowing about something doesn't make you a part of it. For instance, you thinking everyone's your family. Am I your family? Its head eerily tilted in question. I'm not trying to insult you, but you're kind of a dick. Let's be realistic here. I'm kind of a dick. I get that. But if I'm going to change everything, if we are going to change everything, let's define some terms, okay? Were you ever alive? Did you have parents? Did you have kids? Did you have anyone that was the reason you got up in the morning? Metaphorically, I have no idea if you've ever slept. It almost looked like his mother, and his heart warmed in a spurt. It reminded him of all the times his borderline schizophrenic mother had searched for the right answer and didn't have the basic components to put it together, and she came up with faith-based cucumber remedies. This thing was so much like his mother suddenly. This was all a dumbass schizophrenic cucumber-based remedy. He actually felt sorry for it. Moya suddenly didn't want it to arrive at justification, so he continued quickly. Hey, you know what? Never mind. I'm sure you've been thinking about this for a really long time. Here's what I've been thinking about. I get that you see annihilation, cruelty, domination. I'm with you on the Leviathan being pretty big assholes, by the way. I wouldn't have existed at all, or I would have ended up a slave without your intervention, right? So you burn down the forest, sort of thing? Allow for new growth? It gave a solemn, ghostly, schizophrenic nod. This poor fucking thing. Okay, so your methods are... Well, I won't get into it. But you claim you have preserved all the cycles? You take blood, right? There's DNA, yeah, but there's memory in there? You break it down and store it? So you're about preservation, and you've got libraries of people? It continued to stare. For instance, you're wearing my mom. Let me take a crack at why. Because you know I care about her. So, caring has value. And blood has value. We agree there? He might be losing it, that tilt of its head not clear as to whether or not it agreed or was about to electrocute him to shut him up. So, you're wearing my mom. You got that from my head. You're in my head, I guess. Sorry about that. Messy place. Don't judge humanity by what I've got going on as far as thoughts go, but you look like my mother. You know that caring matters. You know that memory matters. You're about giving the underdog a shot. I can hang with that. You're a high-tech librarian with a bunch of blood books about people, right? So what I want to ask you is, have you read or experienced those books? I have seen empires rise and fall countless times. Yeah, I get that. And if anything, that's gonna make you want to annihilate people. That's about war and politics. I get that I'm about war. You've seen the ugly, the cruel, the huge, but I'm asking, have you taken any time to delve into what it is to be the hopeful, the kind, and the small? You've got blood books, but once blood dries, it's only ink. Blood needs to flow to be understood. You've held back the empires. I should probably thank you for that. We're on the same side there. History is pretty vile. But the people who start the wars are different from the people who fight the wars. You started this war. I'm fighting it. For me, it's not about empires or the whole galaxy. It's about the woman you look like. It's about the woman I married. It's about my son. It's about my daughter. You've been a guardian, and I've got to say, you've done a pretty kick-ass job of setting up the inevitable. I'm all small here. But what I know that you don't is that my blood's pumping. It's moving. It's not history, and it wants to have a future. It doesn't want to be ink. That choice wouldn't be made for my benefit alone. I don't matter much. But my wife, you should meet her. She embodies a lot of good that I don't. I hurt people. She heals them. We have an amazing son who should be able to see more of the galaxy because he cherishes every molecule of this place. I have a baby girl. She's beautiful, and whether or not she's going to cherish every molecule of this place, she's definitely going to want to put it all in her mouth. Moya brought up pictures of his family on his Omni-tool, cycled through them. They are the difference between dry history and the living possible future. They embody what the past can't have anymore, and what you maybe never had. Hope. You see that people fight. I can show you why they fight. If it's in the blood, if you can get it from my mind, if you can see it, if you can feel it. Moya extended his Omni-tool blade and cut a channel down his palm, blood dripping down. The moment of inspiration forcing him to keep it open, to not turn it into a fist, as the moment of bullshit babble calmed into conviction and action, and he thought, this is a really bad idea. But it's the only idea. He held out his hand to his mother, to the thing that was ignorant. If it's in the blood, take it. We can do this together. I've got an idea. I'm not saying it's a great idea, but it's an idea, and it's much more interesting than annihilation or war. It's much more interesting than judgment or power. Aren't you sick of being here, thinking these thoughts, only able to watch? I could be your family, just like you tried to be mine. We could be your family. Electrocution surged around the ghostly image as Moya held his hand out, blood splashing onto the deck as he saw fascination seep into the eyes of his mother, the eyes of his potential future, and annihilation. It reached out a tentative and slow hand, the same expression of, this is crazy bullshit, that swam in Moya's eyes and thoughts, yet still it reached toward him as Moya smiled, committed to family and blood and crazy stupid. His thoughts moved to prayer, to everyone living he hoped could keep that way. I hope this works, and if it does, I'm really sorry, but I'm also not. Moya reached toward the cold, to the crazy, to the potential future, gripping the cold in his warm and bleeding hand, pulling the mother he hadn't been able to say goodbye to because he'd been dead into an embrace. Now probably he would be dead again, but he'd go out babbling about what was important. The ice and cold that touched his hand was held in his arms. The sensation shifted over suspended moments from cold and slick to warm, and then rapidly heating to searing. His dripping blood turning to a brilliant red that lit them in an eerie glow, pulsed, and then grew to encompass them both.